Greetings and felicitations while we're setting up right here during the pre-show. How's everybody tonight? Chuck, I want to hear about that coin. I'm telling you, that's very intriguing. Where did you get a coin from 256, was it, BC? That's pretty cool. Archaeology is grave robbery under a nicer name. That's right. It is, actually, when you think about it. It's the same thing. That belongs in a museum. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight, just for the fun of it. Closed on all these alerts that keep popping up on my page. I'm just looking back at the comments. Wow. Full-scale conversation going on over there before the pre-show. We got about a little less than a minute and a half and we go live over on the YouTube channel. Well, we're on the YouTube channel over on the radio station. So here we go. Everybody ready? The best cleaning tool I've used is a sewing machine denim needle. On the end of a stick. Sounds stupid, but it's a great tool. Chip away 2,000 years old dirt. Yeah, if it works, it works. That's pretty much it. White vinegar. Yep, that'll do it. It takes away some of the tarnish. Hey, Randall Flagg. Good to see you. Welcome. We got about 40 seconds and we go live over on the radio station. So I'm going to go here and get set to roll. We're going to go dark in a few seconds. Oh, hell. What about right now? We got 15 seconds. Here we go. I'm going to go dark. You sit tight. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Friday night, everyone. This is Scotty Roberts. You're listening and watching the Intrepid radio program right here on the Spud Space. You know what I meant, the Subspace Odyssey radio network. And you can go over and see us over on Facebook. You can listen to the audio over on Odyssey Radio and Subspace Radio. And you can, of course, join the chat room over on the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. If you haven't joined the channel or subscribed to the channel, subscribe to it. And if you haven't joined, hit the little join button. You'll see what that's all about. And that's about it. I don't want to drag that out. I dragged that out too long, too many times. But I hope you have had a fun week, a productive week. Productive sounds so busy. Fun week is probably the better way to put it, because you can be productive and have fun doing it. If you're not having fun being productive, you're not as productive as you might think you are. So, just talking to Chuck Thurston over in the chat room prior to the show, seeing a conversation over there about his coin, his 2,200-year-old coin. Chuck, do you know, is that coin, is it a Roman coin, did you say? Do you know anything about it? What it's about, where it's from, etc.? I think that's very intriguing, interesting stuff. And that kind of fits into a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight. talking about or around or things like that. So I want to let you know I gave a lot away in the graphic for tonight's show. Most of you will know where that picture came from. And here, I'll do my best impersonation of him. He said, "Well, what shall we talk about?" We all know who that was. If you were around 40 years ago and an adult and watching those movies, or if you've seen them over the years and there's a new one coming up, that whole Indiana Jones franchise. Back when that movie came out, it was 1981, and I was not quite 21 years old. I was born in 60 in November, so I didn't turn 21 until November. That came out the summer of 81. I was 20 years old, and I had a friend at the time who kind of turned me on to that movie. He said, "Hey, have you seen that Raiders of the Lost Ark yet?" And I said, no, I haven't seen that. It looks kind of good. He says, man, he says, it's the same actor who plays Han Solo in the Star Wars movies. And he says, which he was good in. He says, he's even better in this. And my friend told me I can relate more to the Indiana Jones character than I can to the Han Solo character. And that was his take. And I remember, Chuck, I started college in fall of 78. And so I was already home by age 20. I had gone through 2.5 years of college, almost got expelled, went home, did other things, then went on to seminary after that. So, 1981. When you think about that, that movie is 42 years old. And 42 years old. I remember when I was growing up as a kid in the 70s, and if you had a movie that was 42 years old, that movie dated back into the 30s. And that was the old black and white stuff that even my mother didn't grow up with. Her parents grew up with those movies. So my mom was born in 42, wasn't going to the movies till the 50s. So, so when you think about that, that's an old movie now. And what's cool about it is they've kept that franchise going. Now, tonight, I want to talk a little bit about Indiana Jones. But it's not an in-depth expose on Indiana Jones. But I want to talk about the influences. I want to talk about the religion in the movies, a little bit of the paranormal, which you could lump together with the religious aspects of those movies. Those movies certainly weren't theological gems, but they had religion in them, and they talked about religion. And there were certain things about, the Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Ark of the Covenant. We've talked about this before. Was the Ark of the Covenant, as the main villain, Belloc, said in the movie, he says, it's a transmitter to God. I just laugh at that because it's not. It was a spiritual thing in the pages of biblical scripture. It was a box overlaid with gold. Boom. That's all it was. It didn't generate its own electricity. It had no power field to it, at least none that we're told. What gave the ark its power was the fact that theologically, the Spirit of God rested on the ark. And when God's presence was there, the ark was charged. When God's presence was gone from the ark was a box overlaid with gold, and that was it. Now, of course, the flip side of that might be that if there are those out there that don't want to believe or choose not to believe in Old Testament scriptures and the theology of the Bible, they might say maybe that box was charged magically, mysteriously, scientifically by the combination of elements, and the outcome was people believing that it was God that was actually making the box supercharged. So there's a big question. Chuck just said the ark is always a question. It's not what it contained. It was the power of God itself. Yeah. And remember when God called in, or God came down as the Shekinah glory, when Moses had all the people gather and the cloud descended on the Ark of the Covenant, the Shekinah glory of God, which I've mentioned many times, Shekinah being a female gender term. So the Shekinah of God, was it a goddess? Was it the goddess related to Jehovah or Elohim? Well, whichever, it descended down and it settled on the ark. And that's when the ark got its power. Was it when God was there? Indiana Jones and the Battle of the Old Folks' Place, says Field Guy. I should only hope that I'm in as good a shape as Harrison Ford when I should turn 80. So, yeah, and I think that's kind of cool, though, that the movies have followed him through the years and have aged the character and through the decades, through the years. So, I've been watching Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford in 1923, part of the third segment of the Yellowstone saga. And that he seems not as he's in shape and he can move around because he's stayed in good shape his whole life. But you can tell he's an 80-year-old man. Let's see how he does in the next installment of Indiana Jones. Yeah, Patrick Stewart's in his 80s as well. Now, I often wondered in Picard if that voice of Picard was Patrick Stewart's affectation of being an elderly man. But I've heard him in interviews and he talks the same way. You can tell he's getting older. And that's life. We all do. And Indiana Jones is growing older as well. Is this going to be their very last outing? At 80, I would think it's tougher for Ford to play the part. I would have to think that there's a lot more use of stunt doubles. And I would have to think if this movie was super well received at the box office and becomes the blockbuster that they hope it will be, will they try to do anything else with Indiana Jones after this, the character himself, the 90-year-old Indiana Jones? It's interesting. If you ever watched the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, I think it was, the series that had Sean Patrick Duffy, was it? I can't remember his last name, playing the young Indiana Jones. You look at that, and in the first episode, you meet the old Indiana Jones. The little kid meets him, and he's sliding down a railing at the museum. He's not wearing his classic fedora. He's got one of those, like the hat that Sean Connery wore in Indiana Jones 4. The one with the Holy Grail. Indiana Jones 4. Why is the title slipping my mind? But like the fisherman's hat, you know. And so, but it turns out Indiana Jones has aged much better than they portrayed him way back in the early 80s or in the mid 80s when they're doing the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. So in the TV show, the other guy played but in the movie, River Phoenix played him as a young man. Yes, he did, as a Boy Scout. And we might talk about that even a little bit tonight. But I wanted to look at this. There's a couple of things that I have up. And it's, I'm trying to decide which way I want to go with this tonight first. What shall we talk about? Shall we talk about Indiana Jones, the inside story of The Last Crusade, which was movie number 4, because this revealed a lot of things about Indiana Jones, his youth, played by, again, River Phoenix, and because there's a lot of juicy stuff in there about what Spielberg had wanted to do with the Indiana Jones character. The other one is Indiana Jones' use of religion to hide terrifying truths about life. And it's interesting because I look at this and I say, they're talking about Indiana Jones 5 and the franchise, that the setting connects to the franchise's James Bond inspiration. You know, Indiana Jones famously rose out of Steven Spielberg's desire to direct a James Bond movie. And the new film that's coming up this summer in June has an opportunity to connect to the 007 roots. And the timeline for the new movie coming up, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's directed largely by the age of, dictated largely by the age of Harrison Ford. He was in his late 30s when he first donned the dusty fedora in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and 4 decades later, he's reached his 80th year. And keeping Indy frozen in time simply isn't an option. The actor can't play him anymore, despite the importance of the Great Depression and the rise of Nazism in the character's identity. So the new film is going to move forward to the 1960s, better reflecting the actor's years and purportedly focusing on the space race for its larger-than-life plot. And 2008's Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it grappled with the same dilemma, setting its story amid the red scars of the 1950s, which may have contributed to its muted reception amongst fans. And I think we're going to cover some of the villains he had, and maybe for as brilliant as she is, Cate Blanchett, and as well as she played her role, that villain was a little lackluster. We didn't know where to take that. And the whole Red Scare issue, the Iron Curtain, the bomb, and all of those things, I think that got lost on some people, while the whole concept of alien life out there in that movie pretty much set Indiana Jones up for being very finite. He didn't know everything, and there's no way to know everything. It set a much bigger universe in front of him. Now, the Dial of Destiny is a bit of an ace in the hole on this front. The early 1960s witnessed the rise of the James Bond franchise, which played a huge role in Indy's creation and his development. And while the specifics of the Dial of Destiny remain under wraps, there's sufficient crossover in the time period to let the film formally reconnect with the spy series in a very interesting way. So, that's going to be very interesting to see where they take that and what they do with this new film. We've gotten all kinds of leaks. We've seen some of the in the trailers, some of the age, the word I'm looking for is not reduction, but where they've de-aged Harrison Ford in certain scenes so he can go back into Nazi Germany. You see clips from that. That's going to be interesting to see. And the genesis of Indiana Jones lies really in a famous meeting on a Hawaiian beach between filmmakers Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. Spielberg was keen to direct a James Bond film, but had been turned down by the franchise guru Albert R. Broccoli. And Uncle Dave might recognize that name. And Lucas claimed he had a better idea than the Bond movies. No, Steven, I got something better. And he pitched the rough and tumble archaeologist as an ideal fullerum for the same manner of an upbeat action. And the two agreed on the spot to make the Indiana Jones movies. And a new franchise was born that way. And the series made quiet nods to 007 over the years, most notably by casting Sean Connery as Indy's father in 1989's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And, you know what's interesting about that? Sean Connery, I think, was only something like not even 10 years older than Harrison Ford at the time. But it worked. Subtler references include Indy's status as a de facto government agent in Raiders and the use of Bondian tropes, such as impenetrable fortresses and elaborate death traps present throughout the entire franchise. And remember, you find that in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when he hops into the miraculously saves his life by hopping into a lead-lined refrigerator during an atomic bomb drop test, and he's being scrubbed down and he's being interrogated by Secret Service and CIA and the general. I can't remember what the character was. His rank defended Indy, saying, he worked for us. And there was that brief hint that Indiana Jones was once a spy. And so the Dial of Destiny has this chance to pull something entirely new from Bond, and that's 007's status as a Nazi basher. And so there's some very interesting things in the upcoming film, but I wanted to look at, just for fun here at the very beginning of all this, to look at the Indiana Jones major movie villains ranked from worst to best. And let's take a look at these for a second. Remember, Indiana Jones, the venerable archaeologist, has faced quite a few memorable foes. And here's how Indiana Jones' dastardly enemies stack up against each other. Jones, of course, is probably one of the most memorable heroes to appear on the silver screen. And throughout his adventures, he's met many colorful characters. He's seen many strange sights. But a good hero has to face great peril and an equally bad enemy. And Dr. Jones has faced many a dastardly villain in his quests beyond common things. And the Indiana Jones series has had a number of villains to oppose this iconic hero. And most famously, the iconic adventurers battled Nazis. I hate these guys, as Indiana Jones said, but they're not the only foes he's faced. And many are excellent in their own right, but some fall really short compared to the rest. Now, here's how the major villains of Indiana Jones rank when compared to each other. Now, this is my opinion. You may or may not like this. You may disagree with this. And remember, this is all entertainment we're talking about. This is kind of fun. But let's go from worst to best. Who would you rank? Put it over there in the chat room. Who would you rank as probably the worst villain to appear in the Indiana Jones movies? My pick, I thought Indiana Jones was an archaeology teacher. He was, Sarah. He was that too. But Walter Donovan, do you remember that name and what movie that was from? That's villain number one. And what I would rank is probably not the worst, but, the most lackluster villain. Walter Donovan, he was the guy that was hiring Indy to go find the Holy Grail. And he didn't feel very important in the Indiana Jones series. The movie could have lived or died without him. And Barbie D, you've missed a lot if you've only seen the first movie. There's some fantastic films. Now, Donovan was the greedy businessman and the art collector, and his deceitful nature in Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade doesn't get him far on the list. Donovan's played with charm by Star Wars alumni Julian Glover, but he feels pretty useless in the film, really. He gets outplayed by his own traitorous colleague, and most of the evil work gets handled by an unsuspecting Indy and the Nazis he allies himself with. Donovan's goal was to outlive everyone, and that was commendable as a villain, but alas, he chose poorly, if you remember that scene, and did himself in with his own greed. Now, he's certainly not a bad villain, but he's not the most striking of Indy's antagonists, in my opinion. You're getting there to something, Sarah. Hang on to your reins there, Sarah. Number 5 in the list of the worst enemies. Irina Spalko. She doesn't have a whole lot to work with there, but she was played by Cate Blanchett, who is brilliant in almost anything she does. And I remember her. She was the Russian. I don't even know what her position was. So my indie trivia is very weak when it comes to those little details like that. I know I'm bad, Scotty, says Barbie D, but movies like that never got my attention. Sorry. Hey, it's okay. You probably sit down and watch it and go, whoa, that was amazing. Scotty was right. But Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a 50s throwback. So it's only logical that acclaimed actress Cate Blanchett plays a villain to match. And it sounds like a good idea as a Russian femme fatale with psychic powers, and that she'd fit perfectly into a movie filled with aliens. Unfortunately, the execution in the film feels somewhat lacking with her. Despite the mentioned psychic powers, Spalko doesn't employ them much, and they seem to have no effect on Dr. Jones. However, she manages to bring some enjoyment to the film, as her courageous demeanor makes her stand out, and she gets a memorable fencing scene. She was a good character, but she was not the best villain, in my opinion. So, moving on. Number 4. Major Toht, T-O-H-T, is one of Indiana Jones' greatest foes. But I've got him ranked at number 4. He's one of the most memorable henchmen in the series. What shall we talk about? Do you remember when he grabbed the searing hot headpiece of Ra in Tibet, and he picks it up and it sears its image into his hand, and he goes, ah! He has this screeching, whimpering thing, and goes out in the snowbank. But he leaves quite an impact, despite not being named Raiders of the Lost Ark. His quiet, ruthless nature makes him a perfect face for the Nazi threat Indiana Jones has battled so often. And the manner in which he threatens Marion with a fire poker, remember that scene? And callously orders his own henchmen to get killed alongside Indy, does much to cement him as a chilling villain. Remember when Indy's fighting with the big Tibetan that's working for the Nazi guy, and he goes, shoot them both. And the big Tibetan's like, oh. And so his infinitely horrifying death scene further seals his place as a memorable villain in the Indiana Jones series. Do you remember how he died at the opening of the Ark? Chuck Thurston says, holy crap, that was Cate. I didn't realize that until now. Oh, really? Yeah, Cate Blanchett. Amazing actress. So, even though he is one of our first villains, he was not the villain of the movie. We'll get to him. Number 3 on my list is Elsa Schneider's death. That leaves everyone wanting more. Walter Donovan may have been the villain calling the shots in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, but his colleague, Dr. Elsa Schneider, is the true evil highlight. She's a classic femme fatale, and she played Indy and his father both into enemy hands with little effort. Oh, that was a great scene where she's talking about what a wonderful romance and thing, and she's talking to Indy, and you've got Sean Connery, his dad, going, "Oh, well, yes, it was good, wasn't it?" And, so she had both father and son along the way. She also shows signs of regretting her allegiance to the Nazis, which they tried to give her a little soul when they did that, when she expresses disgust at a book burning rally and eventually betrays Donovan to get the Holy Grail. And all of this makes for a very compelling character to watch, to the extent that her demise almost feels saddening because of her moral complexity that she faced. And so while you see the Indiana Jones movies as these great action flicks, there was a lot of meaning deep down underneath, and we're going to get to some of that too. Number 2, I've got him ranked as number 2, Mola Ram. He's so bad that he's good in Indiana Jones. This is from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and it's forever dogged by controversy over this problematic portrayal of India and the stereotypes it uses. I say balderdash, I say. In every society, every culture has its good and bad guys, its weird cults, its weird evils, its weird goods. And so I never got that out of that movie. I enjoyed that movie thoroughly. However, there's no denying that the late Amrish Puri, who played the part of Mola Ram, put in a spectacular performance as lead villain Mola Ram. He's a sight to behold, thanks to his theatrical behavior, with his infamous human sacrifice doing much to show him as a terrifying figure. And his brainwashing of Indy and the enslavement of children cements him as a credible threat. And it makes his eventual demise at the end of the film very satisfying. Although I think it should have been more than just being eaten by crocodiles. Don't you think? So as he fully embodies the role of a villain that the audience will love to hate. Now, number one villain in Indiana Jones movies. Who do you think I'm going to say is number one villain? Who do you guys think? All of those of you who are into the Indiana Jones movies, which villain do you think was the wait, Sarah Yusuf clutches pearls. And was that in response to Chuck not realizing till just now that was Cate Blanchett? So what else did I see? I remember when he turned his nunchucks into a coat hanger. Oh, yeah. What shall we talk about? Americans always so underdressed for the wrong occasions. Something like that. So, and he pulls out, it looks like he had nunchucks. He snaps them and he brings them around and they're a coat hanger for his leather coat. So, of all of Indy's villains, I think the very best, and I wish they could bring him back. But remember, the Ark sucked him into a mass of melted skin, bones, tissue, and blood. And that would be Belloc. All of Indy's villains, the smug yet oddly charming Belloc, rises to the top in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's the man, as the man himself tells Dr. Jones, I am but the shadowy reflection of the archaeologist, and it is all the better for it. And he says, I'm but a shadowy reflection of you, Indiana. And that's where Indiana Jones says, now you're getting nasty. And he's perfectly at home, courting the love interest, Marion, while working with Nazis and using underhanded tactics to get one over on Indiana Jones. And that makes it, and if you notice between them, he's a villain, all right, but there's this rivalry between the two of them, which is hinted at and played at many times throughout that film. And that makes it all the more satisfying when he finally makes a mistake and seals his doom when he opens the Ark of the Covenant. And his mixture of sophistication, roguish trickery, they make him the best of all the Indiana Jones enemies and villains. And in my way of seeing the movies, he was, and there were so many of his lines that are so memorable. Go ahead, Indiana, blow it back to God. He says, you and I, we are merely passing through history. And he looks at the ark and he goes, this is history. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Yeah, he left her to die in the snake pit. That wasn't him though. It was the Nazi guy. He says he throws her into the snake pit with Indy, and he yelled no. He says no, and then he looks at her as they're sealing up the top of this tomb, the snake pit, and he says, what does he say exactly? Anybody remember without looking it up? He said something like it was a farewell, au revoir, or something like that. He says to Marion, he says, this was not to be. And so it didn't work out well for him when he dissolved. That's very true, Chuck Thurston. He dissolved in the presence of the God of the Ark of the Covenant. So very interesting stuff, I think. And very interesting villains that he says. Now, by the way, Harrison Ford, and I saw this when I was looking all this up, Harrison Ford says he's not hanging up the Indiana Jones hat. He says, I'm just telling a story. I think that's pretty cool. We'll see what goes on with Indiana Jones past the dial of destiny. I think it's pretty cool. Well, I got to tell you, Barbie D, we got to get you a little educated on Indiana Jones and what he's all about. I should have had. I don't have an Indiana Jones fedora, but I do have my Penman fedora that people mistake for the Indiana Jones fedora. I should have had this on while I was doing all this. There you go. This is my Penman, and it's just a 5-point fedora. Indiana Jones, as I've mentioned before, he had the one furrow down the middle of his hat, and this has the 5 points on it. And so I should have had this hat on. There you go. That's for you, Barbie D. And so what else can we look at here about Indiana Jones? I wanted to look into the psychology of Indiana Jones, the ghosts of Indiana Jones, the paranormal with Indiana Jones. And what I did find was something that was written by The Independent on culture in films and features. And they did this little expose on the fourth movie, the third movie, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And they entitled it Ruins, Rejection, and Daddy Issues. Now, I think that belittles what's behind this. But as the classic film celebrates its 30th anniversary, that would be The Last Crusade, which came out in 1989. This is how Spielberg and Lucas offered a new perspective on Americans' favorite archaeologists. Now, remember, at that time, they weren't sure they were going to be doing any more Indiana Jones movie. This was supposed to be the kind of the swan song at the beginning, right? Or at the onset of it. The release of it. I'm not saying that well. And Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade isn't about nefarious Nazis, ancient artifacts, even though they're in there, the Holy Grail, or the greed of man. All of those things feature in the film, of course. You got your Nazis. You got your ancient artifacts. You've got the Holy Grail. All of these things feature in the movie. in Harrison Ford's third outing as the America's favorite archaeologist adventurer, and it was released in the UK 30 years ago, and the United States the same. But dig a little deeper, and you're going to find a story about some other things. Believe it or not, you don't think of depth in the Indiana Jones movie. You think about, well, how are they going to create the next best great action scene with Harrison Ford? But you've got to dig a little deeper. You're going to find a story about rejection. You're going to find for lack of a better way to put it, a daddy issues drama that also happens to have exploding tanks and men melting into skeletons in the dark. Dangerous crypts thrown into the plot. Femme fatales, all of these things. The father thing was my idea, director Steven Spielberg recalled in 2012. He said, explaining the genesis of its plot. Indy discovers his estranged dad, fellow archaeologist. He doesn't discover him. He just, they've been estranged for years. And who's gone missing on the trail of the Holy Grail. And it's a fabled cup that offers eternal life, and is something you find in the film that Indy's father had kept a diary on and had for most of his life been searching for this artifact. And Spielberg described it as a story about, as Spielberg said, a son is seeking reconciliation with a father, and a father seeking reconciliation with a son. And there's a tension that peaks in a scene on a German blimp between a face-to-face encounter with the Führer and the best seagull-related death in cinema history. And it was a lonely way to grow up, Indy complains at his absent dad. They're sitting on having a dinner on the Zeppelin. And he says, it was a lonely way to grow up. And his dad, of course, was played by none other than, and anybody who knows the Indiana Jones film, by Sean Connery. Sean Connery played his father, and Henry's Henry, it was Henry Jones, Dr. Henry Jones. And his obsession with the Grail while Indy was growing up came at the cost of their relationship as father and son. And the conversation makes clear, quote, if you'd been an ordinary average father like the other guys' dads, you'd have understood that. Indy levels that at his dad. And I was a wonderful father. Did I ever tell you to eat up, to go to bed, to wash your ears, to do your homework? No, I respected your privacy and I taught you self-reliance. Henry fights back at Indy, and they have this little argument going on. What you taught me was that I was less important to you than people who'd been dead for 500 years, replies Indy. It's in this moment that you realize it's not just the Grail Indy's chasing, it's his dad's approval. And guys, how many of us have gone through that? How many women have gone through that for either their dad's or their mom's approval? So this is what he's chasing. Yeah, James Bond gave birth to Han Solo, says Sarah. Yeah, there it is. And so Indy's looking for his dad's approval. And this emotional undercurrent is what makes The Last Crusade such an action-adventure classic. It's the second biggest box office hit of 1989 and the perfect end to the Treasure Seeker's story, or so we thought at the time. And he was brought back, of course, in Crystal Skull in 2008, and another sequel coming this summer. And so, yes, The Last Crusade had heart-pounding stunts that throbbed with adrenaline, boat chases in Venice, Turkish marketplace punch-ups, motorbike escapes, and daring raids of Nazi hideouts. It reminded me, the stuff in Indiana Jones reminds me of the old James Bond films and the spy films and things like that of the 60s. where you got these exotic locales, and they're all going at it. And but it also had a father-son story that revealed a vulnerable side to the hero, one rooted in rejection, the pain of being turned away, which is fitting when you discover how Indiana Jones came to be, which was at the beginning of that film, where the late and sadly very short-lived River Phoenix played the young Indiana Jones in his teens as a Boy Scout in what would that have been, like 1910 or something like that? I can't remember when they placed that. If Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark took place in 1936, and he's about 40, you get the idea of the age he is when he's a teenager. And it was very interesting because it was like in all of 11 and a half minutes of that film, they established several different things about Indiana Jones' past. They established the relationship with his father. They established that his father's looking for the Holy Grail. They establish where he got the scar on his chin, which is Harrison Ford's real scar, but how he got it. They established how he first picked up a whip and started using it. They establish his morality. "This belongs in a museum," he yells. The Cross of Coronado. That all takes place in about 11 and a half minutes in the beginning of the film. So not many people have said no to Steven Spielberg across the glittering career that he has made. James Bond producer Albert Cubby Broccoli is one of them. Maybe it's broccoli. I don't know. If it's broccoli, it's like a vegetable. And it was about 1975, and Jaws, Spielberg's one of his first big blockbusters, had just taken $470 million. A huge bite out of the box office, traumatizing a generation of cinema goers and establishing Spielberg as a hot new Tinseltown talent. Yeah, I can tell you that. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. I never felt safe in the water after watching Jaws. I don't like going into depths of water where I can't see the bottom. Even though I've scuba dived in the Caribbean, I've snorkeled through Honduras. Once we got out past the reef, and all it was is you're looking, and all you see is blue. And there's nothing to measure the distance. It's like a glowy, deep blue until you see something moving out there. And you saw a little speck, and it kept getting closer and closer in this deep field of blue. And it was a huge grouper that was about 6 feet long, and that was swimming closer and closer to us with a bunch of fish around it. And it's like, oh my God, and it was there was nothing hindering your view. You saw it like a half a mile away coming. But anyway, I have a fear of going in the water. Thank you to Steven Spielberg and Jaws, which, by the way, is not the sole reason I fear going in the water. So with his confidence riding high, Spielberg called Broccoli, offering his services for a 007 movie. And he didn't think I was right for the part, the director said. Spielberg said later. Then after Close Encounters of the Third Kind came out and was a big hit once again, Spielberg tried to get it into a Bond film to direct it. Both times he was told thanks, but no thanks. Instead, he started devising his own iconic character with friend George Lucas. James Bond, but better, as the latter once said. And the first two indie films, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, introduced the world to a handsome professor who spends his spare time hot-footing around the mystic ruins. He's a teacher, but he's an adventurer. And the character offered a thrilling vision of American masculinity at the time. a dream of what it means to be male that ranked right up there with John Wayne's strutting cowboy in the American consciousness, combining brains and brawn into a chiseled bounty hunter of antiquities, as Lucas referred to him. And on screen, he'd spitball through situations on a wing and a prayer. I'll think of something, he always says. What are we going to do, Indy? I'll think of something. And as he puts it before improvising a daring raid in The Last Crusade, Ford approached the character with the same rogue, sarcastic charm that made Han Solo a hit in his earlier Lucas collaboration, the Star Wars saga. And so audiences reacted with almost as much enthusiasm as for those films in a galaxy far away. Or maybe I should say far, far away. And the first two Indiana Jones movies grossed a combined $720 million. Now, think of this, though. That was in the early 1980s. That's 40 years ago. And it won positive reviews. Raiders more so than the darker, gloomier Temple of Doom. And it made the character an instant icon. The whip, the hat, the catchphrases. And they immediately became pop cultural shorthand for excitement and adventure. It's like I have, if you go to my Instagram, you'll see they always have you put a little, your name is there and a little thing about yourself at the top. And I just put, it's not the years, honey, it's the mileage. So one of the famous Indiana Jones lines. And so when it came to their third installment of the series, Spielberg and Lucas opted for a narrative that gave fans a really new, fresh perspective on the Indiana Jones character via Indy's father. Who else but Bond, James Bond, could have been worthy enough to play Indiana Jones' dad? And Spielberg told Empire, see, now that gives you a little background too. Spielberg turned down twice to direct a Bond movie. Who does he get to play Indy's father? The original James Bond. And Spielberg told Empire magazine back in 2012, recalling how he'd coaxed Connery into playing Henry. It was the casting that brought the Indiana Jones films full circle. After having his dream of directing a Bond film crushed years earlier, Spielberg had now roped James Bond himself into a film series that wouldn't have existed had the director not been rebuffed by 007 producers. Imagine that. If Steven Spielberg had gotten his way, and if he had been able to direct those Bond movies, do you think he would have come up with Indiana Jones? Then again, that was kind of Lucas's idea. Would Lucas have gone to somebody else? That's very interesting. And by the way, over there on my channel, I see Sayavai, I think that's how you say your name. Darling, don't take calls during the show, but in about 5 minutes we'll be done and we'll go into the captain's cabin. So go introduce yourself to people over in the chat room. Let my mods throw a couple of questions at you. And if you meet muster, you can call in during the captain's cabin. Right? Cool. All right. So, the film, by the way, the Last Crusade, almost looked very different than it actually turned out. Originally, it was entitled Indiana Jones and the Monkey King, believe it or not. And it would have found our hero in the lost city of Sun Wukong, with a giant ape and a gorilla army between him and the Holy Grail. And Lucas wrote an 8-page treatment and then an 11-page one before Gremlins writer Chris Columbus, who directed the first 2, I think it was, Harry Potter movies, fleshed Lucas's work out into a screenplay. And in Columbus's script, Indy is killed and resurrected. And steampunk Nazis with machine gun arms follow his every move, and Indy befriends a 200-year-old pygmy. It also opened in a haunted house in Scotland that found Indy on holiday, but only for his vacation to be derailed by a villainous ghost called Baron Seagrave. Now, Spielberg vetoed The Haunted House and The Legend of the Monkey King as too fanciful. And the director instead returned to an idea he'd originally been skeptical about, the Holy Grail. And Lucas had pitched the idea, but Spielberg worried it didn't pack enough spectacle and that too many people might associate it with Monty Python. So this trend of returning to earlier and discarded plot ideas is typical of the Indiana Jones series. So Last Crusade, as already mentioned, opens with this brilliant origin story, flashing back to Indy's teenage years. Young Jones played by River Phoenix. And the tragic, by the way, Stand By Me star, who'd be dead within 5 years of the making of that film, following a drug overdose. He's phenomenal, instrumental in a scene that amounts to a moment of immaculate Spielbergian storytelling, achieving so much in so little time, 11 minutes and 50 seconds. So from there, we've only got 2 more minutes left on the radio, folks, before we go to the captain's cabin. But from there, the set pieces don't stop coming. What we're doing here really is designing a ride at Disneyland, Spielberg said, when creating, and he didn't mean that literally, creating Raiders with Lucas and Kasdan, and The Last Crusade with its fights on storm-battered boats, escapes from rat-infested tunnels, aerial gunfights, and it was a roller coaster that made most other action movies look like a teacup ride. And so after Indy picks up his dad's tracks in Venice in this movie, ventures to rescue him from a Nazi castle, the pair gradually return to Hate, where the Grail resides. So that's where they filmed, and most people got their first look at the site of Petra in Jordan, which is where they filmed that. And so there's a lot more to this than I wanted to get into. But now that a 5th film is coming out in just a couple of months, Harrison Ford recently has been doing interviews on this. Fans will hope Spielberg and Lucas employ a similar tactic to the one employed after Temple of Doom. That's righting the wrongs of their previous film, Crystal Skull maybe, reverting to the fun feel of the one before. So there you go, folks. We're going to go to the captain's cabin. If you're sitting over on radio, join us. Thanks for being there, radio audience. We're going to get out of here right now. Live long and prosper. Meet us in the chat room.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey, folks, welcome to the Captain's Cabin, the post show for the Intrepid radio program. I really hope you enjoyed talking about Indiana Jones a bit. Very lighthearted. It's not in depth. I'm sure there are a lot of other very in depth things that we could bring out regarding the Indiana Jones movies. Mostly probably around the making of it, the writing of it, the actors, their reactions to it, and all of that. And we always see Harrison Ford. He kind of pisses me off a little bit sometimes because he's made this iconic role, and he still blows them all on. Well, they were just my acting jobs, you know. Come on, there's got to be a little bit more to it than that. Oh, it's just a job. I don't buy that for a minute. He knows how iconic a character that he created. And I think there's probably a little more depth to it than that. And so, yes, Chuck, where's the cup now? Bottom of a gorge, like Sarah said. So, yeah. McDaddy Snugs by Gramps. I'm not sure who they're talking to. Me? If you're talking to me, McDaddy Snugs. I don't know anything about you. Are you young? Are you old? You can call me Gramps if you want. Don't have any grandkids, but there it is. Or are you talking to somebody else in the chat room? I have no idea. No context. See, P. Fletch. Trust me, watch Josie Wales first and then High Plains Drifter and then Pale Rider. I agree with that, Fletch. I really enjoyed all three of those movies. The Outlaw Josie Wales, one of the most perfect Westerns, I think. Toasty with the Mosty. Hello, sexy. I don't know who she's talking to there. Do I know you? There's a lot of interesting, if you notice, folks, in the chat room tonight, a lot of new names. Then somebody tried to or wanted to call in during the show, which we don't do, especially if I don't know them or recognize them. I say, hey, always go into the chat room, introduce yourself. Let people know who you are. Let the mods take a look at you. And before I let you into the show, because we got a lot of people who do a lot of stupid shit when they call in. And when I see 5 different people that I've never seen before, all saying hello and stuff like that, that's like the makings for a little, what would you call it? Little tomfoolery. But you know what? That's okay. You're welcome to be here and talk, especially if you call me sexy. So there you go. And then again, that might not even been aimed at me. So let's see what else we got going on here. Steph is here. Steph Cuervo Queen and Elderberry. I collected all the Clint Eastwood movies, Fletch. The Outlaw Josie Wales is my favorite. Yeah, that's a about as iconic a Western as they come. Let's see. What else? Chuck Thurston. Well, sexy ain't me. Well, I don't know, brother. Don't sell yourself short. Yeah, we old guys. I'm older than you. So we ain't sexy anymore. We're just old with remnants of former things hanging on us. So let's see. I'm just looking back through some of the comments. Where's the cup? Scotty has done some archaeology. He liked the Indiana Jones saga. Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, John Ward would attest to having the Indiana Jones saga, the original movies, be something that really motivated him. And there's a lot of archaeologists out there, believe it or not. There's a lot of archaeologists out there now, especially male archaeologists, that will hail back to the Indiana Jones character as somebody that not taught them about archaeology. So when you think about it, Indiana Jones wasn't the best archaeologist out there. He was a fortune hunter. And he was an educator, but he was a fortune hunter too. So he was on that cusp between the old explorers era and the new archaeological era. And but he was the persona was something that inspired a lot of people in archaeology today. Oh, hey Sarah, how you doing?
Hey, Scotty.
What's going on?
Not too much. Well, actually, that's a lie.
That's a lie.
Before we get started, I just want to wish everyone a happy Eid Mubarak. It's the end of the fasting month
Yes.
of Ramadan.
We've got some friends
So-
in Egypt I have to send some greetings to.
Yeah, we get two holidays per year, and this is one of them. So,
That's it.
yeah, that's it.
So live it up.
Yeah. I always try to explain it to people. To make people understand. So I just say it's Muslim Christmas. So
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the closest
It's a
thing.
good way to put it, I guess.
Yeah, we all celebrate and get together and trade presents and wear new clothes and eat and eat and
Yes.
eat and everything. But going back to Indiana Jones, which my favorite movie was the Last Crusade. But
Yes.
Temple of Doom, because you were talking about Temple of Doom, and then you started Balderdash, and I clutched my pearls. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
There he goes.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's a fine. I mean, Spielberg does get some flack about the cultural appropriation and all that, and
yeah,
a lot of people remember that it's still a popcorn movie, and he sort of is like semi forgiven because the script was so good.
The script was good, and you know what? The problem with all that cultural appropriation stuff, to me, I don't want to offend you or anybody else. It's a bunch of bullshit. There's cultural appropriation that's gone on forever, and there's things called cultural appropriation that are just good storytelling.
Well, I mean,
And
it's
it gets old.
exaggeration, like in the
Yeah.
scene when they're having dinner, they're
Yes.
having the chilled monkey brains and their eyeballs in the
Yes.
soup and all this stuff. I mean, just because you don't understand another person's way of eating or something like that.
Right.
I mean, it was more like for the gross out factor,
Yeah, and that's totally fine when it's used in that comedic sense like that. He wasn't trying to build a case for this is a case about life or culture, or he was using it as comic effect. You could use American foods as comic effect.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So I see that stuff a little differently. I think there's too much emphasis played on political correctness when you start getting into people whining about cultural appropriation.
But,
I just
do you
heard
think
some
it's
great.
oversensitivity?
What's that?
It's oversensitivity, you're saying?
Cultural the people who whine about it?
Yeah.
No, I think it's fake, is what I think. Frankly, that's my take on it. Very few people are going to be offended because they showed a comic scene with a comic twist on somebody's cultural food. It takes an adult and a mature mind to go, hey, that's good fucking comedy. Versus, oh my goodness, they're trying to show that all Indian peoples eat this kind of food. I didn't see any of that kind of food in the village. So it was all making fun of a weird situation, and it was for comic effect. There are all kinds of movies out there that do that. I think if you've got to look over your shoulder every step you take when you're telling a story to make sure you don't offend this person, well, what if what I do here to not offend that person offends that person? Well, then you got to go back for another thing.
You won't get anywhere with that because it's
No.
much like the internet. You're going to offend somebody whether you
Right.
do or
And
not.
I don't believe any of that's where I say fake was my answer.
Mhm.
I don't believe any of that's real offense. I don't think most cases where you see, and I don't have a actual statistical number on this, but I would look at most cases I see where people are complaining about cultural appropriation or, oh, I'm so offended that you did this or you did that. It really comes down there. They couldn't give a rat's ass if they didn't have the public ear on politics. And I think it's kind of dumb. You have a pretty bland society if you can't make fun of yourself and fun of each other, and all of you laugh doing it, because then you can make fun of me next time. Um, the kinds of things that I see that people say they're so offended about are the things that we could talk about with each other on this show every day and laugh about it. It's like, good God, people, grow up and learn to laugh at yourself a little bit. Learn to have fun. Life is too short to start trying to label everything as something bad or offensive, and that's why I have always said, you can't really offend me, because in order for me to be offended, I would have to appropriate your intended insult, and or your comic effect or your whatever. And I say, I just simply don't appropriate it. And So that's the way I know you didn't want to get me off on that tangent, but
Probably.
that's what that stuff does to me. When I see that, it drives me nuts. It's like, do you people really not have anything better to do than find something that offends you in a film or a book or a this or the that? It's like, one of the greatest, I feel, one of the greatest novels ever written, among the top, To Kill a Mockingbird. There were people that were offended by that because of the use of certain cultural languages in 1920s Deep South. And when the whole book was about anti-prejudice, anti-stereotyping, as Atticus said, Scout, you've got to step into somebody's shoes and walk around in them for a mile before you can judge them. And, that's what I see happening when you see books like To Kill a Mockingbird being tagged by people as offensive. We got to remove that it's been removed from a lot of library shelves. It's like, why? Because somebody out there said, oh, I'm offended by that. And that, to me, I say that's fake. That's control. That's controlling behavior, and that's power struggling. And because there's nothing in the book To Kill a Mockingbird that would be offensive to Black people or the Black community. To an individual, maybe if he wants to stretch it, but those are things I look at, and those really have formulated my opinion on, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and the way Indian culture is represented. I don't think he was representing Indian culture. He was representing this bunch of weirdo bad guys in one palace.
It's Temple of Doom.
Yeah, Temple of Doom. So,
but I mean, where people are get offended, that's also a tipping point to start a conversation, which is good. Then you have an exploration of why people think, or the way they do, or I mean, you're 9 times out of 10 you're not going to convince them. But I mean, it's always good to have this conversation to increase knowledge.
Yeah.
But what I really love about the series is really this the script writing and all the things that have been kind of sort of ad-libbed in, because it's like when you're watching a movie, you think A to B to C, and then all of a sudden before you hit C, it takes a right turn to you said you get surprised. You carry on the adventure with them. But especially with the first 3 movies, and and like you were talking about psychology earlier, there is definitely a psychological bent where he gets stuck in stuck in a room with or in a trap where he has to face like a massive amount of animals that people are afraid of. It was bugs in one, snakes, the rats, all that stuff. Because
there's gonna be people offended that they show rats in a negative way in the sewer. It's like, rats are animals. They're lovely.
I don't know about being offended, but I mean, when I was a kid, that snake scene that scared me. It's like, no. That was my first thing with
The
horror.
snake scene and the where he has to reach in and grab that lever in Temple of Doom, and it's
I
got
was
all the
okay with
bugs
that. Yeah, I was okay with that. But I mean,
and creepy
snakes.
crawlies. Hey,
Why
Michael,
does it have to be
Hey,
snakes?
how
how you doing?
Pretty good. I caught part of that. I've been moving around here,
Yeah,
and I thought, damn, there's the hat on. Because I had it in the background, had it on. I've been getting phone calls. Well, this thing never stops. And I thought, I don't know what we're talking about, but he is dressed for the occasion.
why?
But
Thank you. Except for the neon lumberjack shirt.
I look good this morning. Looks even better tonight.
Thank
No,
you, thank you.
I seen a video the other day, and these people, and you talking about people fake offended or whatever. And I'm thinking, fake offended and common sense has left. Like I see Blazing Saddles. I'm looking back through here. I love Blazing Saddles. Mel Brooks. I've been watching Through the World Part 2 the whole time on Hulu. But I seen a video the other day. These people are so mad that Walmart is shutting down in Chicago after they've been looted and looted and looted.
I'm tired of getting stolen from.
I'll tell you another video. They had these people going through. Said how to eat it free at Walmart. They'd go in and get all the deli stuff they have up front and all that. Go through, and feed a family of 8. And get sodas out, and they just walk through Walmart, throw it down in the aisle, and walk out. They said, "This is how you eat it free at Walmart." And common sense, I know, and we run businesses. You cannot, keep giving out freebies and taking a hit like that.
Yeah.
But like you said, everybody's so offended. They're like, "Oh, this is a curse. This is racist. People don't like this or whatever." Oh, we're so offended that they're going to shut the doors and leave. And I know I didn't know if you'd seen that or not, but they had like a whole YouTube video of people saying, "Oh, this is how you eat it free at Walmart. This is how you steal at Walmart." And they wonder why they shut down on the left.
Yep.
So
okay, we're out. Yep.
Yeah, Whole Foods has done the same. Sean said, but I didn't know if you saw that or not. But when you said it's fake offended, these people who come out and they cannot believe their propaganda that they're putting out, because
I know
it's like, "Oh, I cannot believe that you're leaving. I am so mad at you."
Leaving Seattle too, according to Sean Stroik.
Yep. You're brave, and I'm afraid of snakes and rodents.
Depends on the context.
Yeah. Years ago, which they have a pet shop down here. I had the beardy dragons. I'd go down and get the crickets, and they had a store rat, and it was about this long. Oh well, I'll go over here if I care what the camera is. And his name was Ratatouille. You could go in, if you was in a hoodie, he'd crawl in the front of your pockets of your hoodie, or he'd crawl in your hood. And I had about carried that rat out 3 or 4 times out of that store. They said, "Hey, Mike, bring a rat back." And I told that girl we're down there, I said, "I never thought I'd make friends with a rat." But that was a friendliest big old rat. I said, I grew up throwing rocks at rats where I grew up. But
I had a friend of mine. She was an attorney, a county part of the county prosecutor's office in one of the counties here, an outlying area of Minneapolis. And we had a brief relationship for a while, about a year before I met Rainey, and even before that, come to think of it. But she had a rat. It was a blue, some kind of blue, silvery blue color, but the name Blue was in the breed, and a rare or expensively rare type of rat.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you can have expensive breeds of rat, really?
Yeah.
And she ended up giving me one, and one of the young'uns that it had. And she said, "Here, take this." And I said, "Oh, cool." And so she gave me a rat, and I said, I said, "There's something weird about this, getting a rat from an attorney." But I said, "I'll overlook that." And I brought that rat home, and my daughters, who at the time, my twins were 11, I think, something like that. And they would come over to my house. It was before I had custody of them. The separation had just started with my ex-wife, and we were in the midst of custody battles. And so my kids would come over to my house on the weekends, and that rat came to know them. And they said, my attorney friends said, rats are one of the smartest breeds of animals.
Oh yeah.
And that little rat, I can't remember what they named her. They still remember her affectionately today. That rat, they'd come in on Friday afternoons after school to my place. They'd walk in, and the rat knew they were coming. She'd hear the door, and she'd know it was the kids, and she would jump up on the side of we had her in an aquarium with a screen top on it. And she would jump up on the side and wait for them. They'd come and they'd pick her up, take her out of that cage and love on her and have her crawling all over. They had her on the floor, and that rat would crawl on top and fall asleep on them and stuff like that. And just a beautiful little creature. And she eventually died of cancer within a year or two of that. We actually took her to the doctor and spent way too much money. I think I spent for her to have surgery like $700, and I thought $700 on a rat. I'm not doing it for the rat. I was doing it for my kids.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
You know, you can teach the great circle of life, but you'll try to preserve it. And so, I remember when she died, Bryn, I think, was the one holding her, and they were both crying, and you could tell she was on her way out. And very lackadaisical and so on. And Bryn's holding her, and the little rat, she was about that big, but she puts a paw up on Bryn's face and then passed away. And I thought that was really a touching, moving moment. My kids remember that. It's a rat. Rats have a exponentially short lifespan. What do rats live? About 2 to 4 years? Is there 4 years if they're like into their equivalent of human 120?
Yep.
And but we had all kinds of babies, which was really silly. There was one point we had 28 rats, and they were all babies. And we took them all down to the reptile store one day. I said, girls, we can't raise 28 rats. And I said, so we're going to bring them to the reptile store where we know we can get rid of them for free, and we can help support the great circle of life. Yeah. And so we brought them down, and then they wanted to see, they're going to eat them. Can we watch? So they watched a little bit, but we got rid of about 22 of them, I think. So anyway,
it is the circle of life. But like I said, the rats or stuff like that. But like I said, but the
right.
But you're talking about the snakes. Years ago, I got into all the reptiles. I had the beardies and all that.
Sure.
And I went up to the guy that I bought the beardy stuff off of, and he had this big old python. And pythons, if you're relaxed, they're relaxed. They'll lay on you like a tree branch, especially going linky like I am. And I had this thing wrapped around, and I'd just walk around with it. And this guy walked in, I turned around, and he said something. Then I turned. He knocked one of the glass slidey doors off. Like he turned it because them things will open if you hit them hard enough that they'll swing out, they'll break away. And he swore up and down that somebody was trying to kill him with a poisonous snake. And this big old bowl of fire. He just sitting there warm. I thought, there's kids petting the tail of this thing, and this guy was a monster. He's as big as a truck, and he tucked that door plumb and turned. I was like, and they asked me, they said, Mike, were you chasing him? I was like, no, I just turned around. He said, hey, you. I turned around, and me and the snake was saying, hey, what's up, bud?
Nice.
I was like, no, but I didn't know if you'd heard about all the stores closing now, and now they're fake offended about that.
Yep. And I think, and Sarah, back to you on that. I don't mean to, just me. I'm not very opinionated, but that whole thing with people being offended, I really do think a lot of it's fake. I don't think a lot of it's real offense. It's political offense. It's something to be offended about. So that's my whole take on it. So
I know they can't be that dumb to be that offended. Expect people to lose money or whatever.
right.
I guess I need a snake after all. Oh, like I said, snakes are smart too. I had a beardy. That thing would wave at you in the morning because he'd want
Oh, the beardies are. We had one once.
And then first time I did it, I thought I was having a trip. I was lacing my boots up, getting ready to go out, and this thing, like I said, they crawl up on the side of the aquarium. And I was looking at him. He just went. I thought this damn thing waved at me. No,
These are not the droids you're looking for.
Pretty much. I mean, you want to talk about a mind fuck? So I thought, no, Michael, you're saying things. It's 4:30 in the morning. This thing ain't waving at you. So I got down and I started lacing another book. So I'm looking at him. He waves again. So being still about half drunk, I wave back at him. I was like, hey. But I come to find out that they do that to show submission when they're wanting food.
Oh.
Yeah, you want to talk about YouTube and a video pretty quick. I was like, yeah, I'll check you out, buddy. Sure enough, but yeah, like I said, the beardies are smart.
That's my cat. The cat that I get up in the morning and I'm making coffee and he's all up around my legs and my feet, just rubbing in and out, rubbing his body all along my legs. I'm like, stop it, because I know everybody goes, oh, what a cute cat. He loves you so much. And I'm like, no, he's trying to make me feed him.
Yeah.
That's his sign to feed him. He'll run under my feet going down the stairs trying to guide me to his dish.
Yeah.
He's,
Oh, did you see that down there, Chuck? What's that, Thurston?
I had a pet rattlesnake.
Yeah.
As a kid.
Yeah.
Mom made me put him outside when she found out. Your mom didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, he said, yeah. Oh,
Chuck, what is this in your room?
Yeah.
That's my pet snake, Reggie.
Yeah. No, Sean, he's talking about getting a snake. I'd rather have a beardy 10 to 1 or so with a snake.
Oh, the beardies are very cool. The one we had met a tragic end. I'm sorry to say, and it was not neglect. It was an oversight. He was pretty big. He was about 18 inches, 14 to 18 inches long without the tail added on. And he was in a big aquarium. And we were moving. This was way back when Rainey and I were moving out to the ranch. So this is 2008. And it was in the summertime. And everything was getting pulled out of the house. And we were loading a truck. We actually had movers back then that moved us. And, so everything was coming out of the house, getting put on the truck by the movers. And we pulled some things out. And his aquarium got set on the patio in the back. And it was a big, tall aquarium, like a 50-gallon thing, and with a screen mesh on the top. Well, somebody along the way was walking things around and was moving something, and they had something in their hand, and they set it on top of that aquarium. And it completely blocked off all the air. And then it was like 85, 90 degrees outside. And he baked to death without oxygen inside that aquarium over the next 2 hours. Because we were all focused on other parts of the house and doing stuff. And we came out and go, oh, my God, no. Yeah. And he met his demise that way. That was pretty sad.
Yeah.
But,
last time I had Fred and Barney. Yeah, the first time.
Nice.
And Barney outgrew Fred, and I was going to put them both back in the same aquarium so I could clean one, while I was cleaning out the other one. And them things, now they are territorial. I had to reach in there and get the one that had got outgrown. I had to reach in and get him and pull him out because he's over there shaking him. But the bigger one, my ex-wife, she'd walk him on a leash. Had like
wow.
Put the little harness on him, take him out.
I guess I've seen that. That's not so odd.
Yeah, put him in the truck. You'd put his harness on him. He'd ride up on your shoulder. He'd look. You'd have to turn. You couldn't run the air in the truck with him on a hot day. But now he'd like to ride. You want to talk about freaking the girls out at Chick-fil-A? You roll through in the lizard.
Drop your snake.
Yeah. Drop your lizard off. I have black snakes to keep copperheads population in. Yeah, black snakes will kill copperheads.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a beardy and don't find it a problem. Sometimes I have to braid it, but otherwise I just let it hang loose. One of these
There
days
you go.
we're going to braid
Dave
on.
needs to be a grandpa with jokes
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
Let's Sean,
That's not
Sean
even.
Strike
Oh,
said, I ran over a tarantula with a 5-ton by accident, people. It kept moving with a limp, just saying.
what the
Oh,
Andrew
my goodness.
Zimmern said that tarantulas taste like shellfish. So,
oh
Yes.
so
Do I really want to try tarantula, though? No, probably not. It's not high on my list.
no. If you're gonna try a
Well, where
spider,
you
get
live.
your camel spider. At least there's enough of that to go around.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's all about
yeah,
eating local. Whatever you have around you, you're gonna
I
eat.
guess. I'm kind of like, no, no, thank you.
Oh,
Not
what is
very
it?
hungry.
When I
Thank you.
was going to the doctor today, I was riding with my neighbor. Yeah, she took me down, and she said something another, and she said, "What was it? No, it wasn't a badger. It was wasn't things that fight the cobras, the little things that can take a cobra bite and they just sleep it off. And,
What were?
it's the little cats that fight, or they're not a
Oh,
badger.
the little
Mongoose.
cats?
Mongoose.
Mongoose, yeah. She said
Oh,
something.
mongoose. Yeah.
She because one of the ladies that checked me in, she said, "Oh boy," she said she looked mean as a mongoose. And I told her, I said, Miss Margaret, I said, have you ever did any research on how mean a mongoose really is? I said they kill cobras, king cobras. If they asked that,
Yep.
if you're gonna unluckily get bit, they just go over and sleep it off like a hangover.
Wow.
She said, so it don't kill them. I was like, no. I said, you need to look them up when you're talking about somebody mean as a mongoose.
I guess.
I said, there's a couple things in the wild that I don't know. A mongoose is one, and a badger is the other one. That's what everybody says. Rough as a badger's ass. That's it.
We had camel spiders in Egypt.
Yep.
One of the things we had to keep looking out for. And we went into one quarry at Silsila where these big openings, and they had quarried these caves out, quarrying stone out. And we walked down in there, all kinds of deep sand, but everywhere you looked, where the sand was all duned up on the sides and stuff, there's all these skittering little footprints all over everything. Sand spiders.
Yeah.
And so you just don't want to get bit by one. They hurt. I never actually saw one when I was there, but I saw the footprints everywhere. And another thing was
huge.
Climbing rocks. Going up, we went up on this escarpment up above Luxor, or south of Luxor, and we were out in the desert, and we were going up. A friend archaeologist of John and Maria's had come out there, and he was looking for what is called the Lost Quarries of Armant. And so we went up. We're going up this hill, and we're following this very low stone wall, and maybe a foot high, 18 inches at most, and stacked stone. This is going up all along the side of this hill that we're going up, and it would drop off down into the wadi below. And we went up there, and their friend said, this is an old Roman wall, and there were these little circular outposts where they would sit and I don't know, smoke or have a fire or whatever. But then on the other side of the wadi, there was another long escarpment like this one, and you could see over there was a wall on that side. And he said what these walls were to guard the wadi. It was a trade route down below in the little valley. And anyway, as we're going down the one side of that, we had gotten all the way up to the top. We're looking for stuff up there, and I've got some rocks over here and things like that from the wadi, or from up on the top. And the fastest way. Oh, we had one of our guys that was with us. He was a friend of the guy, and at the time, he was very overweight, and he was very diabetic, and he started going into some kind of diabetic shock of some kind, and kind of sat down, took care of things. And by the way, the anecdote to that is that he is now a very thin, lean man, 8 years later, and who is 9 years later. And he pushes health and stuff like that, and he's done very well. But we couldn't carry him down. He was having a tough time, so John said the easiest way, we got to get down to the wadi, where Maria will come and meet us with the truck. And but we had to go down this cliff face, hilly cliff face. And John said, Scotty, you just go ahead, get down there, walk over to where the vehicle is. And he says, I got to help this guy down. And he was step by step. He was with the man, holding his arms, trying to help him get down this rock. He was like a staircase almost, but not just jumbled rock. And we're up. I don't know how high we were up. I don't know how to gauge that. We were up maybe the equivalent of about 20 stories up off the wadi. And so we're walking down this. And as I'm going down, John just said, just be careful. He says, sand spiders. He says, and horned vipers. And it's a big thing in Egypt. Yeah. And as I'm going down this rocky thing, I could see where the sand had blown in, and there were, little bits of sand around. You could see the tracks of the vipers in the sand. And you're like, oh boy, I'll just move through here kind of quickly. And John said they're very aggressive. They're the horned vipers that are there. And so I didn't see any, but I saw a hell of a lot of tracks. So
what is it? Years ago, there's a guy, he opened up an illegal pet shop down here. And he had all these snakes that you weren't even supposed to have in the States.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I was a whole lot younger. Yeah, he actually finally went to prison for having captive wolves. So that's back in the days of the Polaroids. Mm-hmm. And the way it was, they said, hey, if you want to pet the king cobra, I'm thinking he's defanged or whatever. He wasn't. They'd have somebody distract him in the front.
Keep talking. I can hear you. I got to grab it.
And so when they distract him in the front, you pet him in the back, they snap the picture, they give you a Polaroid for $10. I did that with the king cobra and the black mamba. I took him home and showed my mom. She beat the piss out of me. Told me how much I was playing with death.
My son has, I don't know if you can even hear me.
Yeah, your son. Okay.
There were a couple of things I wanted to grab out of the box there. I think I have my son. It's in his fossil collection. But when we were up on top of that escarpment by the Roman walls, I found a bunch of stuff. Put them in my pockets. One was I had a big piece of what they call moonstone. It almost looked like a leg bone with the joints at the end. But it was a rock, and it's pink, and it has reddish pink and white running all through. It looks marbled, and it's precious stone, moonstone. I grabbed one of those about that big and shoved it in my cargo pocket. And then I found this baby, and these were all over the place up there on this high escarpment. And it's these, let's see if I can get a good shot of that. What's that look like to you? That is a oyster shell or clams.
But yeah,
and these were all over. There were thousands of these all over. It's hard to see on this camera. It's kind of a pink color. It's a pinkish color. And they're petrified. It's a rock. All over the place up there on top of the mountain. Seashells. And then I found this, and these were all over the place too. I thought, that's kind of cool. You might know what this is, Michael.
Oh, it looks like cannon shot. It looks like grape shot.
It looks like grape shot, doesn't it? Yes, that would be about a 200 caliber if it were. But this is a dung beetle ball.
Oh.
So what that is, it's petrified bug poop.
Yeah.
Because dung beetles, they would roll their poop into balls. I can't even remember why they do it. Yeah. But these were all over. So I brought a couple of those back.
I thought you showed me a war relic over there and its poop. You got me excited for a while. I'm just going to say, because there's a lot of battlefields that happen in Egypt and Africa.
Oh yeah.
And
well, John had some petrified poop on his desk. that he found.
What was it?
Used it as a
Mythbusters talking about
paperweight.
polishing a turd. They proved you could polish a turd.
Yeah.
But no, there's a lot of things when I was there that I saw that. And I even told them. And the only bad thing about going places like that is if you talk anything that's not in the book of archaeology, they will get rid of you one way or the other. Either throw you out of the country or throw you out.
Right.
And like you said, the seashells are on top of these mountains, 20 stories up.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, how did they get here? I said, you gonna tell me they just magically appeared? Oh, I'm trying to get this laptop. It just ain't cooperating. Yep. Scotty. Oh, I got to move back over this way. That my back is kind of can't get my hip right to get it so I can sit comfortably. But I asked them, I said, how did these things get here? They just magically appeared. Oh no. We no, don't. And I was told several times, don't bring that up. Don't bring that up. I said, flood myth. I said, there's all kinds of flood myths from, all different creation stories and all this other stuff. They said, yeah, but we only believe one. We only believe one. I said, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, then the Nile River Valley looked very, very different as opposed to what we have now.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it was considered. I mean, there are a lot of even myths associated with how that area became a desert. Whether it was a god shooting a fiery arrow into the ground or whatnot. But from the evidence, and stuff is like you're saying, showing with the oyster shell, if they have not been transported in by the people, then it has to be that that area was almost
it was underwater
or an ocean like,
Yes. Yeah, that all had to be underwater at some point.
Yeah.
And these were just everywhere up there. Thousands of these scattered in the rocks. So it's pretty deep.
But like I said, Scotty knows what I'm talking about, because like I said, it's a thin line that you have to walk when you're doing archaeology in Egypt.
Sure.
They have their own ministry of antiquities or whatever, and me and Scotty had conversations about this offline, and I won't open that can of worms tonight because it's late. And but anyway, like I said,
we're gonna wrap up pretty soon.
Because it's like I said, the things I saw and dealt with there, I won't believe them on a stack of Bibles, and we all know I'm a professed heathen.
Sure.
But and I'm like, no, and and they discard all of the pyramids in South and Central America. Oh no, these are the only ones that count. I was like, really? The ones in South America is bigger. But like I said, I need to get out there and look through your box of rocks. And you probably find something out there.
Oh yeah. I got that whole. Here, let's see if I can even do this and show you just by turning this. That whole cabinet right over there.
Yeah, full of rocks.
That cabinet that's where I just went and fetched these two things from. Full of all kinds of stuff from all over Egypt. Things we kicked up in the sand. Things that we could actually carry in our pockets and not get arrested.
I had a cousin one time. Every time we found a rock, his mom, when he moved out, carried out something like 15 5-gallon buckets of just random rocks that he picked up. And,
wow.
And just random rocks that was from around here. But somebody had told him when he's little, said that's an Indian relic. Take it home with you. And he had just carried these rocks home all the time, still believing this was an Indian.
Oh, wow.
And about like the Indian sexstone, effing rock.
Rainey's got. And, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said, you've heard the joke, right? Indian sexstone is an effing rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what it was. And he carried in so many, like, just random rocks in his room. When he moved out, she carried buckets and buckets of rocks out. But and I always told Mom, I said, I told her, I said, hey, I never carried any rocks like that to the house.
Yeah.
But we used to find a lot of the arrowheads here. A lot. Every time we'd plow, we'd find arrowheads or the Stone Age axe things. And
sure.
But like I said, but there's plenty of men that's made plenty of money by digging up rocks.
Sure.
I mean, even in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, I mean, that was part of the, also, the B subplot that he was trying to obtain the these holy rocks for the people.
Yeah.
And
yes.
the whole child labor thing was a side trip to bring all the kids.
It's a what is it? Half round or what was it? You said his name was this morning. His sidekick was a half round or something.
Short round.
Short round.
Short round.
Yeah.
Well, on a positive note, did you ever get to watch Picard today?
No, not yet. I was going to watch it either later tonight or sometime tomorrow.
See what happens is now you're going to do it to you.
Don't tell me what happens.
Because Wendy finally, when I called her, because I asked her, I said, "Did you ever watch it?" She said, "I got 5 more minutes." I said, "Well, I got to see your face at the end." And she was like, "Well, damn," And it opens up a whole new realm at the end, and
yeah,
and I'm like, "Yep, okay." And but like I said, you need to watch.
I'm looking forward to it
because I got to hear your Star Trek opinion on that. Because it's been so long since I saw Indiana Jones that I'm foggy on Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember that I wasn't much of a whip man though. I went and got me one of them whips and I cracked that thing on my head and wore a whip for about 3 days. Yeah, I was like, yep.
John Ward and I had a lot of Indiana Jonesisms, and I was out there, and there were local villagers that one of the imams told them that there was gold behind this relief carving, and it was on their site. It was of the, I don't know if it was the Ramesseid monuments or something else, and they had gone and chiseled holes in it and all of this, and John said, and they found it defaced, is what they found. But it was all carved into a big piece of bedrock. There was no secret chamber behind it, the carvings, it was just bedrock, solid. He said, and we both looked at each other and said, "They're digging in the wrong place." That's a line from the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so just the influence of pop culture in our daily conversation was fun and kind of wild. So.
What was my favorite scene in India where the guy comes out with the swords and he's doing all this stuff and he just pulls the pistol and goes.
He's just fought off a bunch of guys. Guys got the swords and he's just like rolls his eyes and pulls his pistol.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that offended people too,
Yeah.
I mean, that scene was ad-libbed because Harrison Ford had the case of the runs from the day before, and he asked the director, "Please, can we do something else? I can't, I'm constantly running back and forth to the bathroom." I said, "Okay, we'll just shoot him."
Yeah.
But I mean,
and some people got offended by that and still do. It's like, so
I thought it was
watch
funny.
Don't watch it. That's the bottom line. If it offends you, turn it off.
What is it they say? If you're offended, there's an off button or a channel button.
There's an off button. Yeah.
And that's what I'm telling them anymore. There are so many streaming things here, and YouTube has opened up. Everybody can be a producer, and you can put your own content out, which I think is really, really great. And it opens your show up, like this morning, Coffee with KB. You put it on StreamYard and showed him, hey, this is what it can be, Kenny.
It's so much nicer.
And it was. And what was it? It had 6 people or something on at one time, 5, 6.
We had 7 or 8 people on at one time this morning. It's
me, you, Wendy, KB, Bill Guy, and Valerie or something. And then
Valerie.
What's the other lady's name?
Remeldian came on this morning.
And she's in
7 right there.
I always talking about Rock. Yeah, she's the Rock lady. She's the one supposed to find me the Thunder Eggs. What is her
name?
Who? The long hair, older lady that the Rocks that came on last. Oh, she's in the Rocks. Yeah, she lives northeast. She's talking about
Carlene.
Carlene, yeah. I think of her name. Sorry, Carlene. But I could not think.
All right.
Yeah, it's 12 o'clock here. Like I said, it's been a long day. But
those of you, for context, filled in for Kenny Bellis this morning. We did it on StreamYard, just like this, about 14 hours ago.
Yeah.
How is he doing?
He's doing okay. He's
the voice is coming and going quite a bit.
Coming and going.
Yeah.
He's going through treatment. Hopefully trying a couple of the experimental things that have been shot across his bow. And he's doing about as well as you might think for a guy who was given 6 to 12 months to live. And so he's got a great attitude, though. That's
Very much so.
part of it. We may not ever know what privately goes on in his own mind, but he never lets that show.
No.
He's like, I ain't afeard. He says, I know where I'm going. He says, I know what I believe. And he says, if this takes me, it takes me. If it doesn't, he says, I'll enjoy the rest of my life. And so he seems pretty resolute on his beliefs. And he's got strong resolve about where he's at in life. So
yeah, that's like he called me and he straight come to me. He said, Mike, he said, you want to do coffee by KB without me in the morning?
yeah,
I said, KB, I said, I don't want to do it without you. I said, I'd rather
do that. Yeah.
Sunrays. I have a
He came and sat in for a long time today.
and he but that's what he told me. He said I said, well, I said, I need to get it out there so people on your page can see me. And he's like, and like he was kind of hoarse. He's like, I'll get on that. I'll have it ready by 8:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Then I talked to him yesterday, and he said, Scotty, in the morning, try something different. I was like, all right. I said, quick as Scotty jumps on. I said, I'll be there, because it's kind of easier to sit in the side seat. You don't have to do as much. And
Sure. Yeah.
and like I said, I'm still getting used to the video and the audio stuff. Because like this morning, I had so much sun come through my window. That's one of the owls up. Everybody got a nice shot of the
yeah.
got a nice shot of the legs this morning. That they're lucky I had on shorts. Most of them it's just a really nice top. That would have been a show. But yeah, Valerie's like, oh, the sun is bleaching out your camera. I was like, okay, so I had to hang something up.
Yeah, he was a silhouette this morning. So.
Yeah, I was incognito, hat pulled down, darked out room, giving out, I would say, government secrets, but hell, they'll send that 3-letter agency after you. But like I said, and what is it, Monday or something? Or Valerie and Wendy is supposed to do it through StreamYard and host.
That's cool. Looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, but like I said, KB is still kind of, like I said, his resolve is really good. Every time I talk to him, his attitude is very positive. Him and that pup.
Well, that's good to hear.
Have you seen his new pet puppy he's got? She's about so big.
Yep.
Well, so big, and her name is Ryder, spelled W-I something or other. And this thing has
R-Y-D-E-R, I think.
Yeah. And when he shows me, he said, this thing is eat me alive. I said, well, you got your guard dog.
I don't know what kind of dog she is. Just she's that chocolatey brown color, with the floppy ears, and
gorgeous little dog. Gorgeous.
Looks like she'll be a big dog. Well, guys, I'm going to roll it up for tonight. I'm losing touch with my conscious state, and so Sarah, thank you for being here. Sure appreciate it.
Guys.
Appreciate your input. Love talking to you. Hope I wasn't too hard on the.
Well, I mean, I wasn't offended by.
Well, that's good.
By Temple of Doom, but I mean, so I was just pointing it out. But there is one plot hole that because technically, Indiana Jones and his dad, they both drank from the Holy Grail. So what does that mean? What does that entail?
Yeah, I wondered about that. It's supposed to entail. Well, it healed his dad.
Yeah. Does that mean they're both immortal now?
I don't know. Are they immortal? Because he's definitely aging.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to make of that.
Eternal life and eternal youth are two different things.
Yeah, there it is. Eternal life and eternal youth are different things.
Yeah.
But didn't Sean Connery pass away here a while back?
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
A couple of years ago. 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Or more.
Sure, Sean. Like I said, that's.
Oh, it was before the last. Oh, excuse me. It was before he died. Before the last movie came out, which was Crystal Skull. That was 2008, I think. And because they do an homage to him by Indy sitting at his desk in his house, and he looks over at the picture of his dad, Sean Connery, who's passed away. So that movie came out in 2008, I think.
Yes.
So Sean Connery's been gone for quite a while.
Before you go, she's talking about favorite scenes, and like I said, I'm playing back all the Indiana Jones. But I like it when he runs out of bullets or whatever, and they crashed into the bomb crater, and the airplanes come at him, and he takes his umbrella and shoots all the birds up,
Yes,
and crashing through the Messerschmitt. And next thing you
all
know,
the gulls.
the guy crashes down through the tunnel, and he comes out and he looks over at him or whatever, and you see this pilot with the flames come back up over the cockpit, and he's just like,
He's got no wings because he went into the tunnel.
Yeah,
ripped off his wings.
Yeah, but like I said, just some of the stuff, like I said, I don't know why people find that offending, because that was funny. That was funny.
Yeah, it was great.
It was great. I said, hey, you got to use what you got. That's real live stuff right there.
That's right.
Yeah, there was some that would argue that Indiana Jones is a bad decision maker, but he's really good at being adaptable.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, you can't blame Han Solo. That's all I say. It was good enough. It was good enough for Princess Leia. I'm on Harrison Ford's team.
Well, there you go.
That's it.
That's the gauge.
That's it.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks for being here. See you, Sarah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye. See you, Michael.
See you, bud.
Good to talk to you. Glad you could come on tonight.
Yes, sir.
All right. And everybody else, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the broadcast. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And I certainly enjoyed myself. And I will see you again maybe on Sunday morning. I might have to be traveling on Sunday morning. We'll see what happens. So until then, just watch for the announcement. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper.